Hello again, everyone. Welcome to this is video 10. Video 10 is going to be we're going to talk about step over and step out now. Again, we have to revert to this view so you see clearly what you are doing. The main sequence contains two different sets of activities, as we discussed in the first video. And I'm going to illustrate the difference. Step over is different from step into because it executes like all the activities inside a single, shall we say, sequence or workflow. So for example, if we open this, you realize it's quite a number of steps. Maybe, as you can see from the panel here, the number of steps in here, right? So it's going to just, so that you have a visual. I'm going to scroll back up and minimize it. It's going to execute everything inside here. There are a number of steps, like maybe 6 or 7 steps at once, and then stop, right? So that's the difference. Step into would do it one by one, like we saw in the last video. Step over would do all the steps inside a single sequence at once and then stop. Then you can move to the next sequence and do it, right? So that's what step over would do. To activate or illustrate what it does, start by clicking step into. As you remember, that will hit the top level of the project. Then one more click will take it to this set of activities, which, as I said, is open, right? I mean, we can leave it open too, but I just left it minimized so that it's easier on your eyes, right? So if I click step over now, what it's going to do is it's going to execute everything inside object repo and then stop. So I'm going to hit it once. Now, of course, if there's no mistake, that is right. If there's a mistake, it's going to crash and stop. So you see, it's finished. But it stopped. It didn't go further. Remember that this is step over we're working on, right? So I'm going to click step into one more time so it moves to the next step. Then I'm going to hit step over again. Again, it's going to do everything inside this sequence and then stop. Which, of course, is not a lot of activities. So 3 seconds and it stops. Then if I click it, step into one more time, it's, that's it. It's done it, right? So the difference is that this one will take, even if there were 100 activities, it will move them all at once. It will do them all at once, I'm sorry. But as it is, there are only about 6 steps or something in here. And then it will stop. Now, what's the difference between step out and step over, which is the third step? Step out would execute everything. So what you have inside here, let me try and explain this. What you have inside this main sequence is 2 sets of sequences, right? And so, very similar to debug, this will work both of them at once and then stop, right? Now, it starts to matter. Again, this is an oversimplified case. There are only 2 tiny sequences here. And to give you a visual, I'm going to move you over to an automation I made. Now, you will not be able to, at this stage, replicate this second automation I just opened, but I want to use it as an illustration. If I click on main in the outline here, you'll see that it has one baby, and then that baby has this baby, and this baby. It basically has 3 different sets of three different sets of activities, and so it's much more complicated than the one we're looking at. And each of these has many steps inside, many steps, so it's not a simple situation like what we have on the other automation. Many steps in there. So it's quite complex. Now, so what I'm trying to illustrate is that if I minimize this, it doesn't quite show. If I expand this try here, you'll see that, this is quite a busy, you see what I'm saying? It's quite a busy, there's a lot of activities inside this. It's not really like a simple automation. A lot of steps in it, you can see. But all of that is inside this thing I minimized. So what I'm trying to say now is that a step over, right? A step over is different from a step. Sorry, let me open debug. It's different from a step out in the sense that if you click, going back to the other automation, if you click step out, it's going to do one box at a time, just this and this, right? But if you click step over, it's going to, everything nested, these two things are nested inside this main sequence. It will do both of them at the same time, right? Now, I'm going to illustrate with this simple scenario. Again, I will do step into, so it first of all highlights what we're going to execute. And if I click step out, what happens? You see it opens sequence 1, which is press the calculator and get an answer. Then it does this. So it did everything. And it's all done. So again, the difference between this step over, I mean, to finish it, you have to like click step out one more time, then stop. But the difference between these two is that this one does like one at a time. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay, I can stop it. This one does like one at a time. We'll do object repo. Step over will do object repo and stop and wait for you to give it another command. And then you can now click again and it will do post object repo and then stop and wait for you to give it another command. Whereas step out will do everything inside a box. So if you have a very complex, these are called nested sequences, by the way. These two are inside this, so they are nested inside of it. But if you have a very complicated process like this, you know, it's useful because, like, take for example, this here is one box. But inside this box, look at all the activities that you have in there. Try, read. So, you know, it's, if I just want to execute the contents of this try catch and then stop, it will do everything inside it and stop. Then wait for me to give it the next command, right? But I would have to like right click and say, you know, hold on a minute. I think let me not confuse. Let's leave it as simple as, because this is a very, you know, I'm sure you already have an eyesore looking at all these activities here. The key thing is that these three activities are nested inside main. So instacheck is nested inside main, but this instacheck data entry, if you open it, it has like 3 babies. This is one baby, it's another, oops, this is one baby, this is another baby, and this is the third baby. So these 3 are nested inside, even though it's a much more complicated process. And so if I did step out now, it would do all these 3 things and then stop, right? Whereas step over would do this set first and then stop. Then it would do, if you click the next step, it would do everything inside this box here, which again has been minimized so that it doesn't look so busy, and then stop. Then we do this one and then stop. Okay, so as you can see, when it gets busier, it looks scarier, but essentially if I close them, you can see it's just 3. If I minimize them, I'm sorry, collapse them rather, you can see that there are just 3 activities inside this automation, which again you can't replicate. I'm just using this as an example to show that it can get very complicated compared to the simple scenario we have here. So having said that, we've looked at these 3 things and that's how you use them. That's an oversimplified explanation, and it will serve you as a developer throughout whatever you need to do. Now remember, we talked about breakpoints. I didn't mention 2 things because I didn't feel like they were like super important, but I can take a few minutes to just talk about them now. One is that when you click and you say you set a breakpoint here, you want it to stop there. If I click again, this means it's been disabled. Okay, it's not going to work next time. But if I don't want it to show at all, I click the 3rd time. Okay, I didn't talk about that. And the other thing is that it says here that you have like show breakpoints panel. So in other words, if I set a breakpoint here, right, and another breakpoint, say at this point, you know, usually you set them because you're like not sure it's going to work and you want to make sure it works. So I collapse it again. And I press play. Before I even press play, you will see that as I clicked on breakpoints panel, this lower place, I don't know whether it will show immediately for you, but it becomes an option, you know. But you can see that it does give you like an outline of where your breakpoints are, just for a visual. And then if I press play, of course, it's going to stop at each point. It's going to go like it's about to go through everything. And then it will stop at the point where I set breakpoint. Right? So it has done that. It has stopped at the first time. Let me scoot it over a little bit so you can see. And, you know, the breakpoints panel just shows you, okay, if you have 100 breakpoints in the process, you'll see where they all are, right? And you can expand them to see, you know, where it is and all of that. I don't know that it's always useful, but again, if it's a really complicated process, you'll have a couple of those here and there. And so it's good to know where they are. Right, so that's what that is for. I'm going to stop here now before we move on to the other parts of this menu, but I can tell you that the majority of the functionality we've already covered as of now. I hope you're enjoying this and see you in the next one. Bye.